This is a recording of the section of Book 1 that we shall be reading for class. Before going to the reading, perhaps we should look at our questions. So for Book 1, I am asking you to look out for what qualities or achievements would allow a man to be truly blessed or happy. And then the second thing is, what kind of relationship do blessed individuals have with their family? And what kind of relationship do they have with their state or polis? So who's truly blessed or happy? And what kind of relationship do such people have with, firstly, their families, and secondly, their polis? I should also ask you to note the two characters that we're going to pay attention to here in Book 1. So in this portion of Herodotus, Croesus, the king of Lydia, meets with Solon, the wise man from Athens, who will inform the Eastern king of Greek ideals and concept of happiness. So Croesus was the king of Lydia, whose capital is Sardis, right? The big mint of Persia. Well, it used to be his capital where he would mint his coins. So this was an extremely affluent and successful individual. And he had conquered at this point most of Western Asia Minor. Solon, on the other hand, was an individual who wrote the new law codes of Athens because of the fact that so much of the Athenian population was suffering from debt and they needed a just constitution. So he rewrote the constitution and then placed himself on self-exile so that the Athenians would not ask him to change the constitution because it was going to be difficult for them to deal with. So these two individuals are going to meet, and the concepts of happiness and blessedness, the Eastern and the Western concepts, are going to be put on display. So here we go. As time went on, Croesus subdued well nigh all the nations west of the Halys and held them in subjection, except only the Cilicians and Lycians. The rest, Lydians, Phrygians, Mysians, Meriadinians, Calibes, Paphlagonians, Thymians, and Bithynians, who were Thracians, Carians, Ionians, Dorians, Aeolians, Pamphylians, were subdued and became subjects of Croesus, like the Lydians, and Sardis was at the height of its wealth. There came to the city all the teachers from Hellas who then lived in this or that manner, and among them came Solon of Athens. He, having made laws for the Athenians at their request, left his home for 10 years and set out on a voyage to see the world, as he said. This he did, lest he should be compelled to repeal any of the laws that he made, since the Athenians themselves could not repeal them, for they were bound by solemn oaths to abide for 10 years by such laws as Solon made. For this reason, and to see the world, Solon left Athens and visited Amasis in Egypt and Croesus at Sardis. And when he had come, Croesus entertained him in his palace. Now, on the third or fourth day after his coming, Croesus bade his servants lead Solon round among his treasures, and they showed him all that was there, the greatness and the prosperous state of it. And when he had seen and considered all, Croesus, when occasion served, thus questioned him: Our Athenian guest, we have heard much of you by reason of your wisdom and your wanderings, how that you have traveled far to seek knowledge and to see the world. Now, therefore, I am fain to ask you, if you have ever seen a man more blessed than all his fellows. So Croesus inquired, supposing himself to be blessed beyond all men. But Solon spoke the truth without flattery. Such an one, O king, he said, I have seen. Tellus of Athens. Croesus wondered at this, and sharply asked Solon, How do you judge Tellus to be more blessed? Solon replied, Tellus' city was prosperous, and he was the father of noble sons, and he saw children born to all of them, and their state well established. Moreover, having then as much wealth as a man may among us, he crowned his life with a most glorious death, for in a battle between the Athenians and their neighbors at Eleusis, he attacked and routed the enemy, and most nobly there died. And the Athenians gave him public burial where he fell, and paid him great honor. Now, when Solon had roused the curiosity of Croesus by recounting the many ways in which Tellus was blessed, the king further asked him whom he placed second after Tellus, thinking that assuredly the second prize at least would be his. Solon answered, Cleobis and Biton. These were Argives, and besides sufficient wealth, they had such strength of body as I will show. Both were prize winners, and this story too is related of them. There was a festival of Hera among the Argives, and their mother must by all means be drawn to the temple by a yoke of oxen. But the oxen did not come in time from the fields. So the young men, being thus thwarted by lack of time, put themselves to the yoke and drew the carriage with their mother sitting thereon. For 45 furlongs they drew it till they came to the temple. Having done this, and been seen by the assembly, they made a most excellent end of their lives. And the gods showed by these men how that it was better for a man to die than to live. For the men of Argos came round and gave the youths joy of their strength, and so likewise did the women to their mother for the excellence of her sons. She then, in her joy at what was done and said, came before the image of the goddess and prayed that her sons Cleobis and Biton, who had done such great honor to the goddess, should be given the best boon that a man may receive. After the prayer, the young men sacrificed and ate of the feast. Then they lay down to sleep in the temple itself and never rose up more. But here ended their lives. Then the Argives made and set up at Delphi images of them because of their excellence. So Solon gave to Cleobis and Biton the second prize of happiness. But Croesus said in anger, Guest from Athens, is our prosperity then held by you so worthless that you match us not even with common men? Croesus, said Solon, you ask me concerning the lot of man. Well, I know how jealous is heaven, and how it loves to trouble us. In a man's length of days he may see and suffer many things that he much mislikes. For I set the limit of man's life at 70 years. In these 70 are days 25,200, if we count not the intercalary month. But if every second year be lengthened by a month so that the seasons in the calendar might rightly accord, then the intercalary months are 35 over and above 70 years, and the days of these months and the 1,050. So then, all the days together of the 70 years are seen to be 26,250. And one may well say that no one of all these days is like another in that which it brings. Thus then, Croesus, the whole of man is but chance. Now, if I am to speak of you, I say that I see you very rich and the king of many men. But I cannot yet answer your question before I hear that you have ended your life well. For he who is very rich is no more blessed than he who had but enough for the day, unless fortune so attend him that he ends his life well, having all good things about him. Many men of great wealth are unblessed, and many that have no great substance are fortunate. Now, the very rich man who is yet unblessed has but two advantages over the fortunate man, but the fortunate man has many advantages over the rich but unblessed. For this latter is the stronger to accomplish his desire and to bear the stroke of great calamity. But these are the advantages of the fortunate man, that though he be not so strong as the other to deal with calamity and desire, yet these are kept far from him by his good fortune, and he is free from deformity, sickness, and all evil, and happy in his children and his comeliness. If then such a man, besides all this, shall also end his life well, then he is the man whom you seek, and is worthy to be called blessed. But we must wait till he be dead, and call him not yet blessed, but fortunate. Now no one who is but man can have all these good things together, just as no land is altogether self-sufficing in what it produces. One thing it has, another it lacks, and the best land is that which has most. So, too, no single person is sufficient for himself. One thing he has, another he lacks. But whoever continues in the possession of most things, and at last makes a gracious end of his life, such a man, O king, I deem worthy of this title. We must look to the conclusion of every matter, and see how it shall end. For there are many to whom heaven has given a vision of blessedness, and yet afterwards brought them to utter ruin. So spoke Solon. Croesus, therefore, gave him no largesse, but sent him away as a man of no account. For he thought that man to be very foolish, who disregarded present prosperity, and bade him look rather to the end of every matter. So that is our reading of Book 1. I should let you know that Croesus is a very well-known figure in Herodotus. After this, he hears about this new empire rising and sends an oracle off to Delphi. And when he gets the oracle back, he interprets it to mean that, or he was told that the oracle said that if he were to attack an empire, a great empire would fall. So and this empire was, of course, the Persians. So Croesus decides, okay, so if I attack the Persians, a great empire will fall. That's clearly the Persians. Let's go. Not thinking that it could be his empire. And of course, once he attacks the Persians are able to utterly and totally vanquish him, at which point he recognizes the error of his ways. And this whole story of Solon telling him what he does for him to come to this unglorious, and he actually ends up serving the Persian king, comes true. All right. You have one more video to watch, so I hope you enjoyed this one, and the next one is going to be on Thermopylae.